Good morning. I'm Anna Marie de la Vega. This is Focus. Thank you for joining me. Today, we have the return of Paris Jackson, a financial advisor. She's with Northwestern Mutual, and lots of things have changed since we last spoke.
Yes, ma'am.
So maybe we talk about the back to school season that we're seeing right now and the finances that people are trying to deal with and thinking, okay, what can I do next year to make that better?
Yeah.
You want to start there, and then we'll move on to some issues that are affecting the entire country and driving people nuts.
So back to school, would love to leave some tips for the audience and say, first things first is to continue to look for sales. Although we're in a different environment with tariffs maybe being applied to shopping online, there's still some brick and mortar stores that you can go into and look for sale items. Mm-hmm. The second thing is don't buy a lot. Have your kids look for common color bottoms and maybe buy multiple shirts so they can mix and match and create different outfits. I know that was probably one of the funnest things for me when I was a child. We didn't have a whole lot of clothes, but I would find ways to kind of be creative and make a whole new outfit out of the things I already had.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Also, wait on school lists from the teachers versus purchasing everything that you see online. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many notebooks that I have still in my house from when my kids were in high school, and pencils and, all of these supplies that they may not necessarily need. And if we're going to spend the money, of course, let's spend it to help the teachers and the students get through the school year with stuff that they actually need.
Oh, that's good.
Most schools now post the list online for parents to see so they can kind of get ahead of the rush, because if you wait for everything after school starts, you might miss out on some things. Mm-hmm. And then the prices go up. So basic items like, pens, notebooks, paper is definitely a good thing to buy, but just don't get too much, because most of the time the kids don't use it, and oftentimes they don't need all the supplies on the list.
Okay, Good to know.
And then the last one that has been really successful for me and my kids is to give the older kids a budget. When you are spending your money, kids tend to want any and everything available that they see in the store.
Oh, wow.
And when you look up, you're like, man, I've spent, $600 or $700. Give the kids a budget to operate within, and it teaches them life skills about money. And then they start to make better decisions over a period of time. So when my daughters entered their freshman year in high school, I gave them $500. So you decide what shoes are important to you. You decide what, shirts and bottoms and everything, because you got to make this $500 stretch. And it taught them so much about money, and it made them respect what was being paid for them versus just continuing to ask for things.
Right. They're not going to ask for a $400 pair of shoes.
Right.
If all they have is $500.
Yeah.
They see how that works.
Yeah.
That's really good. So do you remember what did they say when you first, they weren't surprised that you would give them a budget? I feel
not in my household, because it was a conversation we had at the end of their 8th grade year. Like, hey, you're going into the summer, and you're going into high school, and there are a lot of things that we need to learn about life, because before you know it, this time period is over and you're an adult. Them understanding like, hey, we gotta try to learn this while still having the protection of our parents. I think is the perfect time to start teaching kids about budgeting skills, so that they don't go out and make as many mistakes when they leave the home.
And did they do pretty well?
They do, yeah. They both ended up with jobs during high school, playing sports and getting good grades all at the same time. And so they were able to buy the things that they wanted, and they utilized the money that I gave them at the beginning of the year for mostly needs and kind of baseline things. Yeah. And so they knew ahead of time, hey, if I want this pair of shoes, or if I want to go on this trip with my friends, I have to be the one to fund it. Yeah. And it teaches them how to work and save for things. So absolutely.
Thinking about things like that will help us at least next year. Yeah. With the back to school issues.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you told them ahead of time, mm-hmm. Be thinking about this, because this is how it's going to play out in future. I think part of what we were going to talk about today on the show is the fact that things change so quickly. Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't know how it's going to play out. Like the laws change and the rules change and the limits of this and that have changed. And now a lot of people were not ready. They didn't get an advance notice that all this might happen.
Right.
And they don't know what to do about it. Can you kind of start talking about a little bit about the changes in laws and what that might mean for everybody, but also especially people on fixed incomes with Social Security who are using Medicare, things like that? I know
Yeah.
this is a deep subject.
Yeah, it is. And we'll probably stay a little bit more surface level so that we can make this broad enough for everybody.
Yes.
But understanding what's changing and what's not. Anna Marie, there are a lot of fears around headlines, but not all changes are immediate or even guaranteed.
Okay.
Medicare premiums are rising, and some lawmakers are proposing changes like automatic enrollment into Medicare Advantage, but most of these aren't finalized. So if you're already receiving benefits, many proposed changes won't affect you immediately, but staying informed helps you advocate for yourself and make proactive decisions.
Okay.
But the best thing is to keep calm, stay informed, and talk to a professional about how potential changes may impact your situation specifically. Oftentimes, like blanket information produces a lot of fear and anxiety in people. And so if you have somebody that you can work with or a team that you're already working with, bring those concerns to them so they can kind of walk you through and understand specifically based off of your income what those changes mean to you and your family, and so that we can kind of reduce a lot of the anxiety that's going around right now.
Well, if you're just joining us, I'm Anna Marie, and this is Focus, and we're talking with financial advisor Paris Jackson. She works with Northwestern Mutual. And is it okay if I say that Paris is now our financial advisor, my husband and mine? Because she kept talking to us and giving us information. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know that. I needed to know that. And so that's one of the things that you're able to do as an individual is find somebody who can help you specifically with your needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And it can start at the beginning.
Love that transition, Anna Marie, because the very next point I had was start planning, for healthcare costs early. No one has the magic ball. No one can predict what is going to happen in the future. But the beauty of having somebody partnered with you in your life to help you work out what your financial future looks like is we can plan for things like that early. And so giving a little bit at a time towards your savings and investing over a 40 and 50 year working period career can definitely help thwart some of the costs that we're seeing later on. But what I'm finding is a lot of time people, they don't plan for healthcare because they don't realize that that is a thing when you're at your most vulnerable state after you've retired.
Yeah. If somebody's crunched the numbers, and I feel sure that they have, they would find that a majority of us at retirement or close to retirement kind of look up and go like, holy cow, I'm not ready for this. We don't have that $1 million that I thought I would save by now, and we haven't won the lottery or whatever, and they're just not ready. And there's probably a lot of panic when people hit like their 50s or 60s.
Yeah. 50s and 60s is a beautiful time. A lot of people think that that's not enough runway to prepare for things like that, but it is if you sit down and do the proper analysis and come up with some ideas and strategies to put things in place for you and your family. And I think we talked about this last time, having a family conversation and understanding, like, once I identify whether or not I can cover everything, if I can't, who can I use for support to help me kind of navigate the what's next? I've run into a lot of families, Anna Marie, where the parents are bringing the kids into the financial conversation to say, hey, if we partner in this one area financially, because I'm on a fixed income, but I know that this can get to a point where it can impact all of us. Let's come up with a plan to make shared medical costs or, a payment for medical insurance being shared across the family members and children or siblings, and just finding creative ways to make it work if you are actually unable to not go back to work.
That is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
To like, this will affect you. If something happens here and we can't carry the load anymore, it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Let's prevent that.
Yeah.
Do you find that people are pretty receptive to ideas like that?
A lot of people are. I advocate for family planning. And so not just within your individual household, but your extended family, who are your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, your cousins, your aunts. The more people that are financially stable, of course, the better off the family unit is when you're talking about legacy. And medical care, medical costs are the things that really take away from that legacy when you get towards the end of your lifespan.
Right. Medical care, medical costs, and housing, because the housing needs might change.
Yeah.
Is that something that one can plan for ahead of time as well? Do you just save as much money as you can? Is there insurance for that? Like if you need to go to someplace for assisted care or something.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to plan for it. There's long-term care insurance that we can plan ahead of time. When we're young and healthy, we can put things in place to provide extra insurance on top of our medical care so that if we need a nurse to come to our home or we need to go to a facility, that insurance or additional package will kind of protect you and your family. And we're not having to do things like sell our homes or sell our vehicles or deplete 401ks and any other thing that we're using for our livelihood. Right. Or using for legacy. We can protect those areas by having plans in place earlier. Anna Marie, a lot of companies are not able to provide that long-term care component that you're talking about, but there are some that are available, and you can start things like that. Even in your 70s, you can put long-term care policies into place to help you kind of mitigate those costs for medical.
Oh, wow. So how do we know when to get ready for some long-term care? Like, say, mom is losing the ability to what?
And so long-term care, Anna Marie, equates to someone's ability to not be able to do at least 2 of the daily living activities. So if I can't get out of bed on my own, if I can't feed myself, take a shower, administer medicine, things like that, then that can trigger a long-term care event. And so the most important thing to understand is it's not age discriminate. This can happen to anybody of any age. And so from a planning perspective, the earlier you start, the better. I typically, for budget purposes, start looking at planning for long-term care with clients in their 30s so that, they're still pretty healthy and the plan is extremely affordable. But there are also plans for people in their 60s and 70s that are affordable to help kind of cover the costs if someone needs a nurse to come in and provide assistance or if they need to go to a facility. And it's key to understand that because, whether you have Medicare or any type of private insurance, there's always going to be a cap on what they can provide to you as an individual. And then if you don't have a separate plan or a separate policy available to support those costs, then you have to start utilizing things like your 401k or your savings. Some people have to sell their home and move in with other people to, afford those costs. Yeah. And so it's a really important aspect of planning that I talk with through my clients so that we can kind of help prepare for those things.
Because not only does it demolish your savings and your 401k, but then it starts eating into the rest of the family's finances. Yeah. Because then you have someone taking care of you and it starts eating into their income because they can't work.
Right. And so we've seen it, whether it's like the spouse has to come in and stop what they're doing to provide that care for you, or a child or sibling that's coming in. And sometimes they're not working, but they may not be physically able to support all of the needs of that individual. Yeah. So it's just a healthy thing to do is make it a part of planning because the cost of healthcare is rising. People are working longer. Because pensions are not available like they used to be. And so saving, by design and being precise with what you're doing with your money, often that lesson comes later in life. And so if I'm trying to play catch up, I want to be sure that I'm doing the right things by my money. And oftentimes some people just don't get that chance. And so we want to try and introduce the concept of preparing for healthcare through the financial planning process to ease that burden when people get older.
Have you been doing that for a long time, preparing for health care through financial planning? Because I don't know that I'd ever heard anybody address that.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for the past 3 years. While I was in the military, of course, I didn't have that opportunity. But as you get older, things start coming into sight, like me looking at my parents and I'm like, okay, well, what is the plan? That question automatically popped up, which triggered me to ask questions. And even though I'm in this career field, there's still things that you have to learn. And there's no other lesson in life like experience, right?
Oh, boy.
When you're thinking about the people that matter to you most and what their plan is and how they're going to survive. As soon as they say, hey, they give you a call that I'm sick or I'm this and I'm that, your mind immediately worries about who's going to take care of them. Yeah. And so if you're in the hustle and bustle of life, especially if you're in the sandwich generation, you have kids that you're taking care of, and now you have this major concern with your family members or your parents. It can definitely take a toll on people.
Yeah, not only financially, but physically as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be if we plan well through our financial planning. If we earn too much after we get to a certain age, is that going to affect our Medicare and the other resources that we might have had already?
Yeah, so how much income you bring in is definitely a factor. And so you want to look at how and when you draw from your retirement accounts because they can affect your taxes and your Medicare premiums. Any large withdrawals from a 401k or an IRA could push you into a higher income bracket, which may result in higher Medicare Part B premiums. If you're in good health and can afford to delay getting those Social Security premiums, holding off past full retirement age means more money per month and then possibly could last you longer. So if someone wants to draw at 62, just because they're eligible, it may be wise to push that withdrawal out, work a few more years and allow that money to grow from a per month basis, because once you draw it out, we can't do any increases in the monthly premium. So putting that as a part of your plan over time, definitely looking at that with my clients, like, hey, what age do you want to retire? And they'll say, hey, I want to retire at 55.
Yeah.
Well, there's a long stretch between 55 and the age that you're eligible for Social Security. So if we plan properly, we can have different buckets of money for you to pull from that make it available for that Social Security to be deferred as long as possible. Or if you're going to draw it early, just know what the plans and the income restrictions are so we can make that money last for you.
And what about legacy planning? What do you mean by legacy planning?
So legacy planning, healthcare is the major factor that thwarts that ability to leave legacy to your family.
Oh.
So I have clients who expect to leave, money for their grandkids for college, or want to be able to put a down payment on their kids for their first home, or just be able to leave money to pay property taxes on some type of, family home or what have you.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if the proper planning isn't in place and a medical incident occurs, everything that you've saved for gets utilized because everyone doesn't have life insurance.
Yeah.
So if my only sources are the things that I've built up over my working life and I need my medical, then that's going to have to become the priority. And so it makes it hard, or not difficult, but it just may delay how much you're able to give, or if anything at all, from a legacy perspective.
That's one of the things that Paris Jackson, she's a financial advisor and she's with Northwestern Mutual. That's one of the things that I don't want to say preaches, that you preach, but it's the whole family having a healthy financial picture.
Yeah.
And working together, because if this part of the family gets it together, and then this part of the family can get it together, and then the whole family's quality of life raises.
Right.
And uplifts for generations.
It does.
It's generational.
It is generational. I have one of my favorite clients. She was inspired by her grandmother. Her grandmother talked about money all the time. The grandmother's children talked about money all the time, which then passed on to her grandchildren. And so it's beautiful to see the legacy. Although her grandmother isn't here anymore, you can see how it's trickled down into the family, and they have, discussions at family reunions about money and making sure that everybody has the right information to make the best decisions. Now, while it won't cover 100% of the family, because everybody has an individual mindset on what they're willing to do and not do, if you can capture majority, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
And now you just nailed it right there. What you're willing to do is like, here's what I want. What am I willing to do
to get there,
or not do to get there? And so what are the roadblocks? We just like, I'm just not going to scrimp and save that much, or what are the roadblocks that people kind of come up against when they're trying to go like, I want to do this. And it's like, oh, but I won't do that to get it.
A lot of times, Anna Marie, lives, right? And so sometimes it's I lost my job. Sometimes it's I had some major expenses that came in that kind of messed up my finances. But a lot of times it is the decision to make changes, or the lack of a decision to make changes in your life, to adjust what you're spending your money on to make room for the things that truly matter.
Whoa.
And so if I'm a near vision type of person and I'm only looking at what's right in front of me, then I'm concerned about the lifestyle that I have right now, not the potential lifestyle that I may or may not have when I'm 65. I may not have medical issues at that age. I might have the medical issues at 40. And so because we can't see and we're only operating off of what's in front of us versus casting a vision for our future, sometimes it's just hard to make that decision because it requires discipline to tell yourself, no, you can't do these things anymore because we got to reprioritize the money to go elsewhere.
I find also, Paris, that there's kind of peer pressure. people like, well, let's go out to lunch. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. Let's go shopping. Let's go do this. And let's go on a little road trip. Or family member says what we want to do. And of course, we want to be close to our families, like they're in another state. A family member goes like, let's go to so-and-so, let's go on a cruise. And then we want to go look up our genealogy in Spain. And for me, I was like, numbers were spitting through my head. Like, I don't know where that's going to come from.
Yeah.
They've apparently have that planned for somehow. But I just thought, I don't know how we would make that happen at this point, because that's not what we were planning for. We weren't planning for that. And I think sometimes people are tempted to go like, well, we do have that credit card. We have that credit card. We can just put that on the car and then we'll just pay it off. And suddenly we'll have more money and we'll pay it off easier. And I feel like peer pressure is a big deal.
It is the term that I remember growing up is keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
And I think often in this current environment, we have to be able to tell people no. And oftentimes the ones you can identify who really cares about you, because if I tell you no and it causes a negative reaction versus I tell you no and you're like, okay, I understand because I want your well-being financially to get where you need it to be. I think we can kind of decipher who really cares about you long-term, because temporary things don't provide long-term security. The decisions that you make today from where you're placing your money, that one cruise may be $5,000.
Yeah.
And now I don't have money for emergencies. And so when that emergency comes, is that same individual going to be there to help you get through that emergency? And if the answer is no, then it's okay to tell them no.
What did you say? Temporary things don't provide
long-term protection. Long-term protection comes from disciplined actions and doing things repetitively that we may not want to do, right? It's the same thing with people who want a nice body. If I go to the gym one time, it doesn't help me. It
didn't work.
Right? But if I constantly go, even when I don't want to, and I eat right, I'm going to see the fruits of my labor from my physique, and everybody else can see it. That's the beautiful thing about financial planning. You can kind of tell when somebody has everything in alignment and when they've been disciplined over a long period of time. And unless you're talking to like a lottery winner, the average person had to put measures in place and they had to understand where they wanted to go so that they can do the things and make plans and steps and put those things in place and talk to people and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. What about a business owner, right? If somebody says I'm building a business, nobody is going to say, well, that doesn't make sense, right? You're building a business and it takes things that you need to do. You may be working 12 hours. You may work 17 hours, and the hustle and the grind of that is absolutely respected because you can see it. I think oftentimes with finances, it's the invisible thing in the back of the room from a discipline perspective, but out in front of everybody else, you can paint a picture that may not be accurate, because I can be living a life, but that life can be funded by credit cards.
Yep.
Or I can be living a life and that life can be funded by personal loans. And so understanding what it means to be healthy and have healthy people surrounding you to make those decisions that are better for you, not just now, but in the long run, is super, super important.
I think you said it correctly, too, to have healthy people surrounding you, because there are some people who they've got your well-being at heart, but they're not very smart about their finances.
Yeah.
Or this is how I do it and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And they're not ones that you should be taking advice from.
And so you can get advice from multiple people, but you want to watch the fruits that somebody bears in order to determine whether or not that's somebody you should take advice from. And then your plan is definitely going to be different from theirs. The things that work for them may not work for you. And at the end of the day, it still doesn't mean it qualifies a yes in certain circumstances. They may be able to do something at this moment in time that you're not able to do. And so just understanding, vision for me and my clients is on an annual basis. We have the long-term vision of when you want to retire and what legacy looks like to you. But when we're operating in near term. What are we focused on for the rest of 2025? What are we focused on for 2026 so that we keep the things that we do in alignment with that vision? And if there's not one, if we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, it makes it hard to stick, right? And then you start doing things at the last minute because you haven't given your money an assignment.
I want you to say that every time you come here for an interview. You haven't given your money an assignment, and that's what we need to do. And you said something like put them out there like little soldiers.
Yeah.
I was like, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Get
give
out.
them a mission, give them somewhere to go, a target, however you want to phrase it. Like just do right by your money because you work hard for it. I don't care what anybody's job is. They get up every day and they work hard for that money. And so I've seen people with very little have a lot in the end, and I've seen people with a lot have very little in the end. Right. And it's all about what you do with what you have.
I remember hearing some person say that what really was the turning point for them and their finances and living more frugally was when he realized that if I buy this is 5 hours of work to get that, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, I just can buy it and then I'll just have it and blah, blah, blah. Like, what is it going to take you? What are you really giving for that? Yeah. And I think we get separated because we put the card down, we put the, plastic down, we buy it online. We don't even see the card. We just click it, and it comes to our door.
Yeah.
I think we get separated from the fact that if you get this, it takes this many hours of your time to just get back to level.
Yeah.
Because you just gave away part of your life.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing. When my daughter started working, I was able to watch the changes they made because, again, if you're spending someone else's money, it doesn't really register. Right. But when they started working, it's like, man, Mom, I worked 6 hours today and I only got $12 in tips. Like this is where my time went and this is the fruit that I was able. So I'm not going to waste that on DoorDash.
Yes.
Right. Or if, Mom, I worked 6 hours and I got 120 and it was a hard day and people were rude and all these other things. And they take better care of it because they understand what it took to work for it.
How did you personally, Ms. Paris Jackson, financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, how did you get your brain to just where you see the future? It seems like you can see the future more clearly than a lot of us. And it's partly maybe just a shift in focus. We don't even think to focus on the future.
I think it's a gift. And it's not just my ability to focus on the future. It's understanding the lessons that were placed in front of me, sometimes through my own experience or through others. And then having the ability, because of my licensing, to get a lot of information that I understand impacts people. I work with a lot of older clients, and that gives me the ability to see further than where I am right now, to give better advice to the clients who are much younger than me or the clients who are my same age, because experience is the best teacher. And there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the people around us. And so, understanding what is available from a lesson perspective can drastically change how you think about your future, because everybody wants to be well. I don't think anybody's volunteering to live a life where they can't make it on a day-to-day basis, but everybody doesn't understand how to get there. And so putting yourself in position to get around the people who can give you the answers to that is a game changer. But I just love vision. For me, it is the thing that keeps people on track. I've never seen anybody that is successful not have a vision, right? You have something that you're chasing after, because otherwise we're aimlessly moving through life, and you can't stay on target if you don't have a vision for your future.
If you don't have a target.
Yeah.
You said it's like going to the gym every day, right? What would be a daily thing that we could do for our finances? Little baby step that we could do every day to start to maybe see results.
One of the things my clients like is taking money out of their checking. It doesn't have to be every day, maybe at the end of the week, and putting it in their savings. Challenge yourself not to spend it. One meal that I would have bought for fast food, maybe $15, move that money out of my checking, put it into my savings. And at the end of the week, I have $15 more in my emergency fund than I would have had otherwise. Be conscious of the swipe, right? Whether that swipe is something physical you do or it's through an Amazon click or anything else, like really register whether or not it's something you need.
I think I'm finding that groceries is one of the places that I spend so much money that we really don't have to. Is that common, or this I'm just freaky that way? Oh
no, the most common area in budget that we find money to repurpose and reprioritize is groceries and dining out. A lot of people assess their grocery bill because that's something you go to the grocery store maybe once a month, twice a month, buy these large purchases, and you're like, okay, yeah, I spend $850 a month. but we don't do the individual $15 at Chick-fil-A and $10 at Chipotle. And I ordered DoorDash for work, and I went out with my coworkers for lunch. If you assess your grocery bill along with the dining out, you'll be surprised how much money is actually spent on food.
And you go like, I am rich and I did not know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is any final thoughts? We're out of time. Any final thing you'd like to leave people with today, Paris?
The major thing that I want to leave people with is to understand that focus on what you control. You can control. You may not be able to control what happens with Medicare and Social Security, but you can control how prepared you are.
Well, thank you. Financial advisor Paris Jackson. She's with Northwestern Mutual, and as always, she's been a terrific help. Make sure you join us again next week. I'm Anna Marie. That's Focus.